I'm a big fan of a type of prayer called scriptural contemplation. To do it, one reads Scripture extremely slowly and imagine themselves as participating in the events in that particular passage. And when it is done well, we can transport ourselves to be there in that moment. And it opens up wonderful opportunities to enter into deep conversation with God. Because I find it so useful, I have trained others how to do it, because there's a lot of little tricks to doing it well. And when I teach them, the first step is to have them read the passage that they're going to use quickly, so that they can see who all the people are and then choose who in the passage to become, whose place to take. But through this process, I frequently find myself frustrated with the choices people make as who in the story they become. There's often an obvious choice for that person based on the reason they're working with me and what they're struggling with. And yet it is amazing how frequently they choose someone else. Now, I try to be charitable about this because I recognize that we're all on a journey and things can hit too close to home, and we may not quite be ready to take on the spot that, hits our problem most directly right on the nail that hits the head. But I'm convinced that there are plenty of times that the reason for the poor choice isn't that, but is instead a surprising level of willful ignorance and avoidance. In fact, I've seen it so much that I've started second-guessing myself when I do this. How naive am I being in who I am choosing? Am I making these same mistakes? This came to my mind as I first read today's gospel passage. Because I think, based on what I've seen and helping others, most of us would choose to be the one who came back. Or maybe one of the apostles or some bystander. But if we were going to pick amongst the 10, 9 out of 10 of us would pick the one who came back. But who is the one? The foreigner. Are we the foreigner? No, we are the church. Christ gave this parable to the people of Israel, to the precursor to our church, to tell them that it was the foreigners who are better understanding what he has to say. So we, for the most part, are the 9. Would we choose that? I don't think many of us would. But it is the right role, and I want to give a few more other examples of why I think this is true. And we have a wonderful example this morning with our new catechumens and candidate. I often hear from Cradle Catholics a enviousness of adult converts. They have a passion for the faith that is difficult for many people who are Cradle Catholics who grew up in the faith. And at some level, that is an implicit admission that they recognize that there is something wonderful going on in their church, and they can't see it. They're blind to it. The converts can see it, but they can't see it. Another example I hear is people lamenting that they feel very distant from God, or perhaps that in their prayer life, they're not feeling like God is responding to them. But we have to know deep in our heart that that is not because God is far away. It is because we are having a hard time recognizing that he is close. And then the final kind of goes along this lines. All 10 in this story did a petitional prayer. Only one came back with a prayer of thanksgiving. That sounds about right for the prayers I hear on the average day from the average person. 9 to 10 petitions, one prayer of thanksgiving. Thus, I believe if we are to properly reflect on this scripture passage, we must reflect on what it means to be part of the 9, and myself included. We are blessed more than we could possibly imagine, and we are far too often ignorant and ignore those blessings that we should be seeing. So I think we need to spend some time this week in deep contemplation, asking God first to illuminate for our hearts the many blessings he is giving for us. But then just as importantly, to, after we have become more aware of those blessings, to respond to that grace with prayers of thanksgiving and worship, and then beyond that, to go out into the world and share those blessings with others. In case you haven't noticed, our world is hurting. New wars, threats of nuclear annihilation, homelessness and poverty are increasing, not just in the remote parts of the world, but here in the Sacramento area and even in Roseville. Hatred for others is rising. It's poisoning our politics. We live in a world that needs God's love. And we need to be the hands, feet, and voice of God in this world to let them know that they have a loving God. Said more bluntly, we need to volunteer to do more, and we need to put our money where our mouth is and be making more generous financial contributions to the organizations out there who are helping make the world a better place. But I think it is difficult for us to make those leaps, to go the extra mile, when we are ignorant of the very blessings we are already receiving. How can we share the blessings that we don't know that we have? So let's start there this week. Let's reflect on how often we are one of the 9. Let's admit that there have been too many times we have been oblivious to the graces God has given us, and ask God for forgiveness, and then turn to prayers of worship and thanksgiving so that we may take those graces out into the world that so desperately needs him.